How's it going, guys? Sean Bock here from HawkeyeInsider.com on the 24/7 Sports CBS network, here to talk to you about Big Ten Media Day earlier today in Rosemont, Illinois. Obviously, the first year of the Ben McCollum era in Iowa City. Ben McCollum, Bennett Sturts, Cam Yahoo were there in Rosemont earlier today in the north suburbs of the Chicagoland area to talk with the media. Obviously, the local media was there, but national media as well. And the 17 other Big Ten coaches and other players were there as well from the 17 other teams at the Donald Stevens Convention Center to really feel like kick off the college basketball season, or at least the Big Ten season. The Big Ten season doesn't start until December, and football is still going, but you kind of feel it in the air a little bit. We've started to have a little bit of fall weather, but it feels like the days are getting shorter and things are really starting to feel like college basketball season. And there's a lot of excitement with this Iowa team with Ben McCollum and where he's kind of brought this program throughout the offseason, some of the excitement that he's been able to generate. You're really starting to get that feel for now what is the Ben McCollum era in Iowa City and what kind of this program can be under his direction. We got good taste of it earlier today back in Rosemont. So let's get into it a little bit. Bringing Bennett Sturts and Cam Yao, I think that was one of the more notable headlines and storylines going into today. Sturts has been with McCollum for the last couple of years. This is his fourth year with him. Manyahu came from Washington originally, then went to Drake, and then went to Iowa, followed him. Those are two of the guys that are going to be pretty big leaders on this Iowa team, and I think McCollum made that pretty clear by bringing both of those guys. We know that inside the locker room, behind the scenes, that Sturts has kind of been the main guy, been the real leader, kind of the guy that's bringing everyone together. And just talking to him today, you can kind of tell that he's kind of got that, not necessarily chip on his shoulder, but kind of just that leadership badge. It feels like where he's kind of the main guy, obviously he's the best player on the court. He's going to be the best player on the court for Iowa this year, the most impactful. But he really seems like that type of leader that Iowa needs in the program, and something that is really important to Ben McCollum and some of his most successful teams throughout his tenure as head coach at Northwest Missouri State and then Drake for 1 year. But yeah, there were a few other pretty notable, I thought, takeaways from today as well. One of the things that this team was really, or these group of guys were really asked about a lot, is Alvaro Fulgaras, the Robert Morris transfer, who I think Iowa fans got a little bit of a taste of this summer at the Eurobasket, the U20 Eurobasket, where Fulgaras didn't really have his best showing or best outing with Spain, struggled to kind of get a feel for what his game was. He's more of a scorer, trying to force things a little bit, and that's not going to be his role at Iowa. And Ben McCollum made that pretty clear. There's a pretty large sample size of what Alvaro could bring to the table, as we saw at Robert Morris last year, where he was the Horizon League Player of the Year and had a really good game against Alabama in the NCAA tournament. Shot really well throughout the year. Just a really overall efficient, solid player. But McCollum, I was the one that asked him the question. I was like, what do you kind of take away from Alvaro's play in Greece with Spain? Do you take anything away from that, or how do you kind of view what he's going to do? McCollum was very clear. He said, yes, I mean, obviously he didn't have his best game or his best outing, and he's going to tell you that first thing. But one of the things that we like about him so much is that we're going to use him in different ways where he's not really the scorer. And he's going to score. Like, he's capable of being a leading scorer on a nightly basis. But one of the things that really stands out about with Alvaro and with his game and what he brings to the table is the ability to connect guys on the floor. He's a really great passer. And at his size, 6'10", the ability to put the ball on the floor and be able to create, whether that be, being a guy in pick and pop, being that secondary playmaker. And as we know, with the hybrid position with Drake and with Ben McCollum and everything, kind of the offense that they've run, the 3-4 and the hybrids are really the guys that instigate the offense. They really use them in different actions, kind of let them create and, really initiate the offense. And that's something that Ben feels really confident about Alvaro doing. And he just said flat out, hey, we know what he can do offensively. We know what he can do from a skilled standpoint. He can rebound. His defense is farther along. But man, like he just does a lot of really good things on the floor that we can use him to be kind of that connector and really just bring all things together. Like there are some games where he's going to have potential to put up 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, triple doubles, and really have a nice impact on the game. His shooting really stands out, but man, his ability to just be able to play in ball screens and kind of that two-man game where we really see kind of those dribble handoffs that Bennett Starks used a lot last year at Drake and with some of the bigs that they had. That's really what they're going to use Alvaro with. He could be a really, really capable guy in those dribble handoffs, those different actions to get shooters open, to get starts open, and can really work in those pick and pop situations too. And if he can shoot the ball as well as he did at Robert Morris last year, along with kind of be that playmaker and guy who's a really good passer with size and, just kind of gives defense headaches, the floor of this Iowa team raises immensely. I know McCollum is really excited about him, and I think one thing, too, that stood out to me was just that he said that he's a much better defender than we gave him credit for coming in. And if he can adapt and really buy into that, I think that's really going to help this Iowa team as a whole and just, take this team to the next level in that regard. Few other things that stood out. Bennett Starks, we talked about him before. Talked a lot about this freshman class too with Trey Thompson, who was initially in the 2026 class, now in the 2025 class, joined the Iowa team or Iowa program in the summer. Iowa beat out the likes of Purdue, Tennessee, a couple other pretty big programs to get his commitment. He should really be a high school senior, but he shot the ball really well. He's really skilled at 6'8", 6'9". Really fits well in that hybrid position. Chevin Jurak, the 6'11" guy or 6'11" big man from West Des Moines Valley, was initially signed to UNI. He's really made good strides in the weight room. Looks really comfortable. We're starting to look a lot more comfortable and just look, like he belongs at that level. He's obviously very skilled, but he's starting to piece things together too. Tate Sage, they've talked about him a lot, what he can bring as an outside shooter. And yeah, just kind of the depth of this team. And McCollum, one of the things with his teams in the past is they haven't really played a lot of guys. There's been some teams where they've had to go deep, and that was one of the things that he was asked about earlier today was, hey, like, Ben, how deep do you kind of see this rotation going? And he said, I'll go as many as I feel like I have good players. And that's really interesting to me because this team has more depth than last year's Drake team, and there's more talent. And I think one of the things that has been kind of one of the big takeaways has just kind of been this team's ability to shoot the basketball. Like they can really space the floor. And that's one of the areas that continues to get brought up with tempo because one of the knocks of this Iowa team this Drake team, last year was the slow tempo that they played at. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a slow tempo, but the pace in the half court was not slow. Like you constantly saw movement, you constantly saw actions. Like their ability to use, to just derive different actions and do different things and have different counters to, various offensive sets and some of the stuff that they run. Like that's not slow tempo or that's not slow pace. That's playing with pace. That's playing with tempo. They just felt like they had to do all those actions to really, and they can still do it too, to keep defenses off balance and, really force them to guard that long because they didn't have shooters. They didn't really feel like they could play with that much tempo or keep up with teams if it was going to get into a track. I'm not saying they're going to, be putting up 100 points per game, but I think they feel a lot more comfortable, pushing the pace, getting out in transition, because that's really where some of the best three-pointers are shot is out in transition, as we saw in the last couple of years with these Iowa teams and how they were able to get out on the break. But I think one of the things that I really like about this group, too, is that they can beat you in different ways on the offensive end. They can, or at least that's what we believe right now. We saw last year at Drake the type of tempo that they played with, taking up the entire shot clock, playing with really good pace in the half court, but being patient and being okay, we got to work things. We can do these different counters. We can do these different actions to catch the defense off guard. And then we're going to attack you when we catch them sleeping. They could obviously do that this year, but they also feel like that they can do more with pushing the pace, pushing the tempo, and whatnot, which I think is going to be really exciting to see because to have a team with that much depth and have that much shooting ability that can also really get after on the defensive end, I think that's one trait with this team that's really going to be promising and also something that was brought up later today or earlier today was that Iowa as a whole, they feel like they could be a pretty good defensive team. They know they got to be able to guard the interior better. That was one of the knocks on Drake's defense last year, is that they weren't great at defending the rim. And, that just kind of happens with their defensive scheme and kind of how they defend guys. But it also is going to play a role this year in the Big Ten, because a lot of teams are really going to try and attack the basket against this Iowa team, because there may not be the elite size or the elite shot or the elite interior play with this Iowa teams in terms of rim protectors and shot alters. I do think they have a number of guys that are capable of doing that, but I don't know if they're really going to be, elite in that aspect. But I do think in terms of, on-ball defense, that's one of the big things with this Iowa team, and with, how Ben and this coaching staff has preached that the ability to trace the ball and really pressure the ball makes an impact on how some of these guys make decisions. And I think it's going to really be something that they really thrive with this year in terms of tracing the ball on the perimeter, getting up in their face, and just kind of ruining the rhythm of the offense is really going to help. And they feel like they have a pretty good rebounding team too. I know, like I said, one of the knocks on them might be defensively, might be their interior defense, and how teams are going to try and attack the rim on them. But I think they guarded the 3-point line really well last year at Drake, and I think they have more personnel that can, suit that too with this year's Iowa team. But I also think they have rebounding too. I mean, Alvaro Fulgaras is really going to help on the boards with this 6'10" frame. Cam Manyahu's a really good rebounder, albeit he's not the 6'10", 6'11" true five that maybe Iowa fans wanted this offseason via the portal. But he's a really good area rebounder, a really good guy at getting rebounds in space, and he's able to really do the dirty work. And I think his mobility and his length at his size is really going to be a nice, bonus for this Iowa team. And I think too, they're going to start maybe Tavion Banks at the three to kind of, give you more of a two-way guy with really good athleticism that can also rebound really well. And one of the things I think I get caught up with it too sometimes is that rebounding is not all about size. I mean, with rebounding, you got to be able to get yourself in the right position. You have to do the work before the shot or once the shot goes up. Get yourself in the right position, and if you can kind of do those little things, whether that be boxing out, whether that be getting to the right spot, fighting those angles, like getting that leverage, maybe having your guards rebound too, and having just one guy filter out. It's really a team effort, and there's more to it than just being the tallest guy out there. Obviously, it helps from time to time, but there's more to it than just size. So they feel like they can be a pretty good rebounding team. And I know Ben McCollum really puts an emphasis on that as well with his groups. And defensively, I think they're going to be, tough. They're going to be a tough team. And I think that's one of the things, one of the big trademarks with this Iowa team as well. And with obviously McCollum's teams in the past. So, yeah, I mean, there's obviously, we're going to have more stuff on HawkeyeInsider.com. As well. Brendan Housen, the Kansas State transfer, shooting the ball well. Cooper Koch is a guy that that Ben McCollum talked about a lot. Bennett Sturts and Cam brought him up as well. He's been really, acclimating himself well into the culture and being a good shooter, shooting the ball well and rebounding, doing other things, like being more than just an outside shooter. But obviously his 3-point shooting is going to be a big plus for this Iowa team. Isaiah Howard, who's a freshman wing last year for Drake, really has taken a step forward on the perimeter. Ben McCollum said that he's shooting 38% from three this summer in scrimmages when they go up and down. So that's a really positive development, because I felt like teams kind of just let him, teams in the Valley last year and obviously in the NCAA tournament too, kind of just let him stand back there, stand out there on the perimeter and kind of, if he was open, he'd shoot it. He had one pretty good game. I think it was against Southern Illinois where he was 4 of 9 from three. But he was 30.2% from catching threes. And I think someone with that skill set, 6'5", he's a really good straight line driver, really athletic, can get off the ground well, defends well too, can defend the 2 or 3 with a 6'5", 6'6" frame. He plays with a really competitive edge. But man, if he can shoot the ball, if he can improve on that catch and shoot number, which was 32% last year, that just takes this whole, that just adds a whole nother dynamic to what he can bring to the table. And potentially be the first or second guy off the bench. I think he already is kind of filling in that role already, but he could be a really, really good player for this Iowa team. And the fact that he's only a sophomore I mean, you look at what the foundation of this Iowa team can be, and Bennett Sturts is going to be the headliner this year, and Alvaro's an older guy too, and you have Tavion Banks as well. But just having setting that foundation, I think this is what this year really is. I mean, obviously you want to win, and having the number one, arguably one of the top point guards in the country. And I mean, I feel like I'm just gonna ramble if I, kind of keep thinking all the thoughts that are in my head right now. This conference is loaded with point guards. It's ridiculous. And if you have someone like Bennett Sturts who can match that, you're obviously going to want to win, and you're going to want to make it to the NCAA tournament. There's no doubt about that. But I think big picture is, yes, this season is huge for the stepping stone of what this program can be under Ben McCollum. And I think he knows that, but he's also so focused on this year because he really likes his team. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I've gained from that too is, they don't have a lot of depth in the backcourt. I think that's one thing that, you want to be able to have a secondary ball handler of sorts alongside Sturts. I think Cale Combs can become that, but I think one of the notable quotes that Ben McCollum said in the Blue Ribbon magazine was that he wants to see Combs become more of a player instead of just kind of a safe and solid guy. Like he needs to turn a corner for them, whether that's shooting the basketball better, being more aggressive on his drives, being able to get to the rim, being able to attack more, and then dish out to guys, find shooters, stuff like that. Be able to turn the corner on the ball screens and really be a threat to score. Obviously, he's been more of kind of like an off-ball swingman type, but I think Ben really wants to see him kind of not necessarily play the type of role that Sturts has been playing, but I think he wants to maybe see him, be an offensive asset or be a guy that's, not just kind of seen as maybe a, guard or a guy that can handle the ball. Like he wants to see him be able to score and attack and, put pressure on the defense. And obviously he can defend too, but I think Ben really wants to see him mature on the offensive end or at least take that next step. And then, in terms of Isaiah Howard, I already mentioned him a lot, but yeah, I think really the rotation is what's fascinating to me. They have the secret scrimmage coming up against St. Louis this weekend down in St. Louis. The Billikens are projected to be 1 or 2 in the Missouri Valley, or not in the Missouri Valley, excuse me, the Atlantic 10. Sorry, I'm getting so used to saying the Missouri Valley with how much it was brought up today. In the Atlantic 10, and I think it's really going to be fascinating to see how they match up and what we kind of hear behind the scenes because Ben said don't take a lot of stock into some of these scrimmage scores that we play because we tried our hardest to win some of the games or win some of those scrimmages and do everything to win, and we ended up going last in the conference during those 2 years when we were down in Northwest Missouri State. So I think if we see the box score from this, people shouldn't freak out. I think St. Louis is going to be a pretty good team this year in the A10. But Ben really uses to experiment, and I think that's one of the things I'm really excited to hear about from when we talk to sources behind the scenes about these upcoming scrimmages. I think St. Louis is going to be more of kind of a test, okay, this is what we got, this is what, everything that, we have and, how we feel like these guys respond in different situations to what's happening and what's going on in the game. But Texas Tech on the 24th, when they come up to Iowa City, is going to be the more okay, we still want to treat this like a scrimmage, but we also want to treat it like a game. We're going to maybe condense the bench a little bit, but I think we're also going to play guys in different spots and put them in different situations where they need to be comfortable in the future. So yeah, the next couple of weeks will be fascinating in that regard. But when you look up and down this team, I mean, I'm already going up on 20 minutes. This probably should have been 10 minutes. But if you guys know me, I kind of like to ramble a decent amount. With this team, I mean, you have one of the best players in the country in Bennett Sturts. You're going to want to win now. There's no doubt about that. And it's you don't come take this job to lose. That's one thing that Ben said earlier today is, you don't want to get caught up in the, okay, I've arrived. What do you do with the opportunity? And I think he has a team that could really make some noise in the Big Ten because you have the number one point guard, or one of the best point guards in the country. You have some really good shooters, some guys that really complement them. And I think one of the things that sticks out to me is that you have a team and a coaching staff and kind of a system where you can win games in different ways. And that's one of the things that I've really, appreciated kind of covering Ben and seeing what his teams have done in the past and just studying his past teams and the system is that they have guys, they have a system, and they have like a plan in place where their ability to win different games and just win games in different ways and just be a team that can compete against anyone and really just play to different strengths and play to their strengths and also make the teams like have to play to their tempo, play to their pace, play the game they want to play. And some teams struggle with that, as we saw last year with Missouri in the NCAA tournament. And heck, I mean, if Texas Tech, if Ben McCollum and Grant McCasland weren't best friends, Drake maybe goes to the Sweet Six. Drake goes to the Sweet 16, in my opinion. Like McCasland and McCollum are like really, really good friends, and like they know each other like the back of each other's hand. Like that team probably could have went to the second weekend. I really think they could have done that had they not played Texas Tech. And I think that's one of the things I'm most encouraged about with this program, where it's headed and the direction under McCollum is he's a sicko as a coach. Like he knows like his staff is really good with scout. And I think like the execution obviously has to be there too. But I think just seeing what they can do with the pieces that they have at the high major level and the resources, and you having the best guard, one of the best guards in the country, in Sturts, and just seeing how these like complementary pieces grow is going to be really fascinating for me. And just kind of everyone that is involved with the Iowa program and watches this Iowa program, just to see like what he can do with these resources and how he can continue to elevate the level of this program. And he likes the pieces that he has with this team. I mentioned Sturts. I think Brendan Housen's going to be awesome, like in the Mitch Muscari role as kind of that sharpshooter, getting a little more acclimated in the defensive end. This freshman class he's really excited about as well. Cale Combs, we mentioned him too. Trying to think if there's any other guys we haven't really mentioned, but I feel like we kind of hit them on them all. Yeah, I mean it's getting closer, man. Getting closer, guys. Like it's going to be a fun season in Iowa City. It's just so much intrigue, and it's the next couple of weeks will be fascinating to see kind of how things go and how things work, and and it's not going to be a finished project or product obviously at the start of the year. It's going to take some time, but I think Iowa has the guy that they really need to take this program to a level that where it can be consistently at the top and consistently competitive on a nightly basis. And that's going to be one of the big adjustments too. That's what McCollum mentioned, going from the Missouri Valley to the Big Ten. Missouri Valley is a great conference, don't get me wrong, but the Big Ten is a different grind. And just to see how they kind of compete on a nightly basis, how they can go from winning an emotional game to then playing a game where there's maybe not as many emotions, and how do they respond with that. So stay tuned to HawkeyeInsider.com. We have Iowa Men's Basketball Media Day next week in Iowa City, and that's going to be, a lot of more conversations, a lot more interviews, a lot more things that we learn. We'll get a little bit of practice, but we'll also have some secret scrimmage scoop for you guys after talking with sources from, inside the Iowa program or on the Iowa program that will kind of give us the lay down on the secret scrimmage. So thank you guys for checking in on my rambling. I know I kind of talk a lot. Sometimes I'm talking in circles. If you guys have any questions, please put them below in the comments. I'll be sure to answer them. But also check us out on HawkeyeInsider.com. I know we have a lot of people that are on the site and will be watching this video on the site, and comment in the thread with this video and anything else. But for Sean Bock, HawkeyeInsider.com. Sorry I couldn't record this from Rosemont. There's a little bit of a hectic scene there. A lot going on. Internet connection wasn't great. Traffic, wanted to avoid that too. I mean, there's a reason I live in Iowa. Love the state there. Love living there. But man, being back home in Chicago, the traffic is not fun to deal with. So thank you guys for listening. Like I said, check us out on HawkeyeInsider.com. And, I'll see you guys this weekend after Iowa's football game in Madison against the Wisconsin Badgers.